Why do you feel confident in your head, but the moment you're around people, something shuts down? Why do you know exactly what to say and still choose silence? And here's the part most people never realize. It's not fear that's stopping you. It's control. You're trying to control how you're seen, and that's exactly what's killing your confidence. Because real confidence, the kind that actually changes how people feel around you, starts the moment you stop managing perception. And that's why it feels dangerous, because once you see this, you can't go back to being the same version of yourself again. If you really pay attention, you'll notice this doesn't show up in big, dramatic moments. It shows up in the smallest ones. That second where you're about to speak and then adjust your words. That message you type and rewrite 3 times before sending. That opinion you soften just enough so it doesn't sound too much. And it feels harmless, almost responsible, like you're just being careful. But what if that carefulness isn't helping you? What if it's quietly training you to stay invisible? Because you don't actually hesitate because you're afraid of speaking. You hesitate because once you speak, you lose control of how you're seen. And that's the part your mind is trying to protect. Not your safety, your image. The version of you that feels acceptable, predictable, easy to understand. So without realizing it, you start filtering everything. Your tone, your reactions, even your personality. Not consciously, but automatically. And over time, that filtered version starts to feel like the real you. But every now and then, something breaks through. A thought you wanted to say but didn't. A reaction you held back. A moment where you felt slightly out of sync with yourself. And it lingers just long enough to make you wonder, was that actually me? Or just the version of me I've learned to present? Because here's where it gets uncomfortable. The version of you that feels safe is also the version that keeps you invisible. And the strange part is, most people never question this. They assume confidence is about being louder, more outgoing, more expressive. So they try to fix it on the surface. Speak more, act bolder, push themselves harder. But it never feels natural. Because the real issue was never expression, it was attachment. Attachment to how you're perceived. Attachment to staying within a version of yourself that won't get judged, rejected, or misunderstood. And once you see that, something shifts. You start noticing how often your decisions aren't based on what you actually think or feel, but on how it might look, how it might sound, how it might be interpreted. And that awareness is unsettling at first because it means a lot of what feels like you is actually adjustment. Small, constant adjustments to stay within an invisible line. But here's where it turns into something else entirely. The moment you stop trying to control how you're perceived, even slightly, confidence starts to show up in a completely different way. Not loud, not forced, just steady. You don't rush to explain yourself. You don't feel the need to soften everything. You don't chase reactions. And that changes how people experience you, because there's no tension in you trying to manage the moment. And this is why it feels dangerous, because now you're no longer operating from that safe, predictable version. You're stepping outside of it without knowing exactly how it will be received. And most people avoid that feeling at all costs, not because they're weak, but because they've trained themselves to equate control with safety. So letting go of that control, even a little, feels unfamiliar. But if you really think about it, every moment you've held back, adjusted yourself, or stayed quiet wasn't because you didn't have something to say. It was because you were trying to protect a version of yourself. And the more you protect it, the more it defines you, quietly, consistently, without you even noticing. And the moment you see that happening in real time, it's almost strange. Because now there's a gap. A small space between you and that automatic reaction to filter yourself. And in that space, something new exists. Not forced confidence, not pretending, just awareness. The kind that doesn't need to prove anything, doesn't need to perform, doesn't need to manage every outcome. And maybe that's what confidence actually is. Not becoming someone louder or bolder, but slowly realizing you don't need to control every perception to exist comfortably. That nothing about you needed to be fixed, only understood differently. And once that clicks, even slightly, the pressure starts to drop. So now I'm curious about you. How often do you stop yourself before anyone else ever does? Drop a comment below and share your experience. I read every single one, and I'd really like to hear your thoughts. And if this video made you see something differently about yourself, make sure to hit subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next one. Also, share this with someone who tends to overthink or hold themselves back. Sometimes they just need to hear this. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.